this practice is going to be an explorative practice. I will take you on a journey of exploring your deep core connection. So, a lot of times when we hear the word core, we suddenly, most likely, pull the navel into the spine. And maybe that's the only strategy you have to use. And of course, the other image we might have is those six-pack abs. And yes, this is all great, but there is a lot more to the core. So in this practice, I will take you into the inner unit. That's what it's called sometimes as well, or just simply core 4, which is very valuable to know, especially if you are recovering or trying to create the healing environment for your pelvic floor, or perhaps you want to just get strong but supple core. So core 4, what are they, you may ask? Or maybe you already know what they are. So 4 are this. So first, it's your respiratory diaphragm, which is located like right here. So if you put your hand right under the breastbone, and then the other is the pelvic floor diaphragm, which is below the navel. So, and they're designed to move and function in sync most of the time. And as we inhale, so the diaphragm contracts and it creates that downward pressure. The pelvic floor relaxes and lengthens. And on the exhalation, so the pelvic floor contracts and the diaphragm and pelvic floor are going upward. So just in simple terms, it's this nice fluid motion. Inhale down and exhale up. So we're going to practice that today. These are 2 out of 4. The third one is transverse abdominis, which is the deep layer of the core muscles that just kind of wraps around here. So if you imagine a paper sleeve around a coffee cup, so this is kind of your transverse abdominis, and they're very deep muscles. So the fourth one is multifidus, and that is going through our cervical spine, which is the neck, all the way down through the spine and all the way down to the sacrum. So yes, this is the inner unit or core 4 or deep core connection. So, which means whatever happens here and around here and here is going to either help us continue a healing process or perhaps hinder a healing process in the pelvic floor or just around everywhere, really. So we're going to explore this core 4 in different positions. So I am using, as you can see, a bolster and a cushion. So if it's not comfortable for you to sit like this, you can sit on the chair or you might just elevate. So I also have a resistance band. You can have a strap or a belt. That is perfectly fine. And then later on, I'll be using a block and a blanket. So there's going to be one advanced pose in the end. It's kind of playful, but advanced. So I'll guide you through that. So we'll start with our breath because that's what's going to help us connect with our diaphragm and the pelvic floor. So sitting here, you're going to try to sit as tall as you possibly can. So and when I say tall, it's not military tall. So we're not pressing the ribs forward and chest up. So it's tall, so you feel your head is lengthening up and your rib cage is in line with the pelvis. And you're going to bring your hands into your rib cage, so fingers in front, thumbs in the back, and the palms on the side. And just for now, see if you can follow my guidance. As you inhale, see if you can inhale into the sides, and you're going to feel how your hands are kind of pushed out a little bit. And as you exhale, everything recoils back and in. And again, inhale. And exhale. And if your shoulders perhaps don't have that mobility, so we're going to use a resistance band. You're going to place your resistance band just again in your lower rib cage where your hands were. I'm gonna gently cross, pull it nicely out, but relax your shoulders. And just allow the resistance band to give you that feedback. Inhale and exhale. So as we're inhaling, you may remember the pressure goes down, the diaphragm travels down, and as you exhale, travels upward. And as you sit here, just gonna try to visualize or maybe perhaps get in touch with what you're experiencing in your lower core and maybe even pelvic floor. See if you can feel a sense of relaxation on inhalation, maybe a sense of a little bit more contraction on exhalation. And if you're not feeling any of that, that's okay. It is happening. So one day you'll get in touch with that. So just try to be aware of your breath throughout the practice. And I will be guiding you and reminding you about it as well. So now go ahead and place your hand again into your rib cage and into below the navel. So bringing awareness to our diaphragm and the pelvic floor diaphragm. And just let's explore different positions that we might take throughout the day. So let's say we had a busy day, we came home, we sat on the couch and we're watching Netflix and we're just kind of like relaxing and slouchy. So just kind of notice how now the rib cage, well, my top hand and the lower hand are not in line. All right. And see if you can take a breath here and just notice how it feels. Just observe. And then let's say that we are driving and the highway is kind of stressful, there's lots of traffic, and we're just like really pushing ourselves forward to see what's going on. And now my top hand is in front of the bottom hand. So let's go ahead and try to inhale here and exhale here. And then let's try one more. So perhaps we're really trying to lean back, and again, just kind of notice how this top and bottom hands communicate or not, and try to take a breath. And then just try to pay attention what position you take throughout the day the most, and perhaps try to explore and change and notice how your breath might be changing. Okay, so from here we'll be coming to our floor on hands and knees. And if you do need support for your knees, just go ahead and grab a blanket and place some support under your knees. We're gonna come to a hands and knees position and try to find your neutral spine. So what I mean by that, we're not just sinking down and arching, and we're not rounding. So try to find something in between. And you might have to go a little bit more into that cat and cow, which is very popular in yoga, and find kind of your neutral that you feel feels neutral to you. So we're going to try to bring our awareness to our pelvis, and we're just going to do our pelvic tilts, really engaging our lower core muscles. And I'll be referring to two bones, pelvic bones here. Okay, I might have to go on this side. Pelvic bones here. So we're going to be imagining we're drawing them in and then lifting the pubic bone up. So which will help us to create the tilt in our pelvis. Okay, so from here, we're gonna just practice some breathing. And the best way to engage our transverse abdominis is to exhale forcefully with the sounds. So let's just do a few of those. So try to inhale in the back and the sides and the front, and so perhaps you've already noticed as you're trying to do that forceful exhalation, you might have noticed some tightness in the lower core muscles just below the navel. So let's try to take that into our pelvic tilts. Again, we're going to inhale, sides, back, front, and And it's a very small movement. So we're not trying to do cat and cow that we kind of usually do in yoga. So this is more precise and targeted movement to the lower core muscles and just allowing our pelvis to tilt without other parts helping. So we're gonna also try to create a little bit more feedback. Place a resistance band right below the shoulder blades and just get some resistance there, not too much. So we're going to try to create that small movement in the pelvis without moving the upper back much. It might be just a little bit of movement, and the resistance band is going to give you that feedback. Are you moving really here? Because what I usually see when I try to ask the client to just tilt the pelvis, a lot of times they're going to do this. All right. Or sometimes they also shift back to do that. Okay, so just kind of notice what you do, what your body does. Inhale here. Inhale. And this time we're going to inhale, come to that neutral pelvis. So try to visualize your tailbone is lifting up, which also helps you lengthen your glute muscles. And then just gently shift back as your tailbone is still up. And just kind of notice how your hip flexors, the front of the hips, are getting a little bit deeper into that flexion. And perhaps you feel some lengthening in your glutes. And then shift forward. And then again, I'm going to do that again, tailbone lifting up. Just see if you can notice how your sit bones are moving away from the center, creating again that lengthening into the glutes. And as you come forward, the sit bones kind of going into that neutral position. So this time we're going to go ahead and take that breath again. Inhale. Tuck the pelvis down and under. And now keep your pelvis in this position and go ahead and shift back and just notice different sensations there. Okay. And again, come forward. So try to maintain that position. So let your core, lower core work for you. So you're really resisting the tailbone going up. And just notice how you're perhaps not feeling much in your glutes, but maybe feeling a lot more in your back. So if we take this position into a forward bend, when we're trying to bend at the hips to lift something maybe off the floor, so kind of be aware, is your pelvis here and you're trying to bend and lift, then maybe that's why you feel your sensations in the back. Or is your tailbone lifted up and you're shifting back, bending at the hips and lifting. Just notice how that feels. All right, so that was a transverse abdominis muscle exploration and also how important it is in daily activities. So from here, I will need a block and we'll be coming to the belly. And the block is going to go for our legs. So you're just going to place the block between the inner thighs. And if your feet are cramping, you can always use a blanket and place a blanket under the feet there. So go ahead and squeeze the block, just activating your glutes a little bit. Try to activate your lower core muscles. And technically your forehead is going to be on the forearms, but I'm talking. So we're going to be inhaling, and as I exhale, I'm going to lift my arms and my head off the floor. So you're going to feel quite a bit of engagement in those multifidus muscles. So try to keep your pubic bone pressed down onto the floor, squeezing the block so you're not arching through the back as you come up. So as soon as you feel your pubic comes off the floor, most likely you're arching from the back and not quite engaging those deep multifidus muscles. I'm going to go ahead and inhale, exhale. So, and if you're not lifting that high, that's okay. You just have to start somewhere. And if you need a little bit different version, you can have your arms on the floor and just lift with the head. So really lifting and pulling yourself up, so you can even use your arms to press down onto the floor. So that might be a little bit easier version to start with. Exhale and lift, and really try to lengthen through the head. So remember those muscles attached to the neck as well. So if you are still feeling some lower back arch, or you're the person who kind of comes from that mommy tummy posture, so and it's very hard for you to engage your core muscles, you may consider just to roll a blanket and place the blanket right under your lower ribs when you lie down on the floor. So that's going to help you engage your core muscles a little bit better, and perhaps you'll be able not to feel it in your lower back as much. And now I'm going to finish with a little bit more advanced pose. So if you have already mastered your core engagement without bearing down, especially on that exhale, then this pose will be great for you. If you're still struggling with your core engagement and kind of like your belly pushing out and feeling that bearing down, then you probably want to avoid this pose, but just kind of watch it because it's fun and it's something to look forward to. So for that, I'll have to take myself out of the mat. And I, of course, have a sliding floor, and that's a requirement for this one. Then I have a blanket here. Okay. It's also very good. So I'm actually going to be using more of my obliques, but also the entire unit, inner unit as well. But this pose gives a great relief for the back, especially if like you like to hike up the hips here, or sometimes feel kind of tight on one side of the back. So this is a great relief, but requires some strength and definitely mastering your core. So I'm gonna again take my breath, sides, front, back. So pulling my pelvic bones in, lifting it up. So keeping everything flat and engaged. I'm gonna take one leg and then the other. So again, if you haven't mastered that work, so you might feel that belly pushing or pressure down. So try to avoid this pose. Again, it's more advanced. I'm gonna place my hands back behind my head without losing my rib cage to the pelvis connection. Okay. And I'm gonna start slow with the breath. I'm gonna inhale here, and as I'm gonna exhale, as you can see, I'm really using my rib cage to pull in towards the pelvis as the other side's lengthening, and come back. Inhale here, exhale to the other side. So you can also have your one hand on the belly just to make sure that nothing is protruding upward. And then, of course, if you feel like, oh, that kind of is nice, so what if I do it faster? So you're basically trying to visualize you are a lazy Susan cabinet, and that gives you a little bit more cardio moment. Still core work. It's kind of fun. If you feel like your hip flexors are overpowering and gripping, well, you may have to regress and work on your core, especially lower core, a lot more. So, but it's good to find out. And as you can see, I can breathe through it, so I'm not holding my breath. It's not one of my strategies. Okay, whew. That feels good. So then from here, you can come up to seated. So if you haven't connected with some motions and movements, that's okay. Just requires a little bit more practice. You can go through this sequence one more time, or just, there are always comments. Well, thank you for joining me on exploration of the deep core connection, core 4, or the inner unit that's going to help you create the environment for healing your pelvic floor and also help you restore your belly bridge.